the topic of the first ever video on this channel. As we're about to witness a new challenger for this utmost achievement, let's revisit some teams in the past that came very close but failed on some or all three fronts at the final hurdles. Then at the end, I'll attempt to explain why treble bids usually fail. Liverpool is undoubtedly one of the top two biggest clubs in England, and in recent years have only strongly revived their argument for top spot. Yet their main rivals Man United, despite having half the amount of European Cup wins, made one of those count as part of the one and only English treble in history, while the Reds' 19 top flight titles, 8 FA Cups and 6 continental triumphs never overlapped in a single year. In fact, there were only 2 seasons where they had a real shot at the treble. For future reference, I'm not counting the likes of 83-84 where the cup was out of the picture in round 4. The first chance came in 1977, simultaneously their first European Cup win and the last with Kevin Keegan, who created a penalty that sealed the victory. Liverpool also fent off Man City, sounds familiar, to defend their league title. Unfortunately, in between these two events came the FA Cup final defeat against bitter rivals Manchester United, who were just 2 years fresh off second-tier football and nearly a decade without major trophies. Attempt 2, though, is still fresh in the minds of many. After a dramatic FA Cup triumph, Liverpool chased Man City to the final day of the league. Just like 10 years ago, City found themselves in the pickle, punished by Reds legend Gerrard on the bench and would-be once again legend Coutinho on the pitch. Imagine the poetry if Liverpool are leading their game. You wanna do something? Anything? Hello? 1 goal, and the title is yours. Don't let them get away. And they came back. Oh, now you decided to score. City didn't take the lead until the final 10 minutes, yet they never gave away their lead on the table thanks to an even bigger ball job at Anfield. The Scousers then punched a Belgian brick wall in the CL final and crumbled to a classic Madrid counterattack. I've lost count on how many scores Salah wants to settle at this point. What I haven't lost count of is Liverpool's treble. 0. The only Italian club to have won the treble is Inter in 2010, but their arch rivals Juventus had many more chances to claim it first or equal it, yet always fell short on one specific front. In 1973, fresh off the arrival of Dino Zoff, Juve won the league in dramatic fashion after AC Milan lost 5-3 at mid-table Hellas Verona in an iconic bottle job. However, in Juve's first ever European Cup final later that month, they were blanked by a lightning strike from the Ajax machine, who completed a historic three-peat. Hope this doesn't become a trend. Then, in the final of the Coppa Italia, which for some reason stopped from September to May, the Bianconeri were avenged by the Rossoneri on penalties. Juve never really threatened the treble during their 3 straight CL final run, but eventually mushed up 2 more shots come the 2010s. This time, they had the domestic double wrapped up, both times beating both Roman sides. In Europe, where other Italians were folding, the Bianconeri became a lone shark, knocking out Madrid and Barca to reach 2 Champions League finals against Barca and Madrid. And the finals bottle jobs become a trend. No treble for you either. You might be asking, what about the other Italian giant, AC Milan? I promise I'll never say it like that again. Who's won the hardest part of the treble 7 times, still second all time. Somehow they had it even worse. In spite of 19 Scudetti and 5 Coppas on top of European glory, there was only 1 season where the Rossoneri finished at least runners-up on all 3 fronts, and that was the historic 1989-90, where they narrowly lost the title to Maradona's Napoli thanks to another disastrous day at Verona, reminiscent of 1973. They did overcome the Neapolitans in the Coppa semis, only to fall short to Juve in the final at home. None of that bothered Milan too much though, as they went on to live their 4th European Cup. Still a golden chance missed. Honorable mention, in 2003, Ancelotti led a new generation of Rossoneri to their first honors, lifting the 2 cups in the span of 4 days. Adding to the fact that they were leading the league by February, the first Italian treble seemed to be finally on the cards. Then you remember this is Carlo Ancelotti we're talking about. Milan won 5 out of their last 15 league matches and finished not even 2nd but 3rd. Am I the only one who thinks these 2 clubs are really similar? Before we get to the final club, let's quickly run through various attempts. Bayer Leverkusen had the dishonor of attaining the first runner-up treble in history, followed by Bayern 10 years later. At least they won theirs soon enough. Celtic could have repeated their historic feat in 1970, but were stopped by 2 red teams in 2 cup finals, Inter actually could have done theirs 45 years earlier if Juve hadn't beaten them in the Copa final in August. However, they denied Benfica in the European Cup as the Gutmann curse began to solidify. But the Eagles were able to deny their own arch-rivals Porto. Yes, that Porto team, the Treble, by beating them in extra time of the Taça final. Might be hard to sympathize with them, but Marseille had arguably the most painful end to a treble bid, losing Le Coup in the 90th minute and the European Cup on penalties, not to Madrid or Bayern, but to some Eastern Europeans, who themselves might also want that Yugoslav Cup final back. Same goes to Steaua in 1986. Lastly and surprisingly, apart from the year that they did win it, Ajax never came close to another treble. And now for the part you've all been waiting for. Why has Real Madrid of all clubs never won the treble? The record-setting 14-time European Cup winners, 35-time Spanish champions, and 20-time Copa del Rey hoisters had by far more chances than anyone else to make history. Or so you would think. In reality, only 4 times have Los Blancos won the league and European double, and only 3 times did they push all 3 fronts all the way. In the double seasons, Madrid almost never got past the quarterfinals of the Copa, and the one time they did, they were stuffed on home ground. 2 years later, they completed the incredible 5-peat of the European Cup, but not before firing their manager due to bottling the league and losing the cup final in almost exact same fashion. 2 more years later, Los Merengues very uncharacteristically won their first domestic double since 1916, and of course, this would be the year they takes losing a European Cup final. Since then, despite racking up trophies like none other, Madrid prefer winning specific runs in bunches rather than all together. Honorable mentions go to the 5 Vultures era of countless semi-losses and the 2002 Centennial campaign where they led the league with 5 games to go, made both cup finals, but bottled nearly everything until young Casillas saved their blushes in the CL final. So, what can we learn from these failed treble bids? One thing worth mentioning is that the European Cup used to have much stricter entries, so teams have much higher incentives to only focus on winning one of the 2. Clubs' power and competition landscape also played a part. The first 3 trebles all came from less competitive leagues, but since the 90s have shifted to the top leagues gradually, concentrating wealth and power. And of course, there's always luck. Bergkamp's missed penalty in '99, the referee howler in 2009 and 2010, 2 of the tightest finals in 2013 and 20. These were decisive factors that could have happened to anyone, but because they didn't happen for the likes of Bayern, Milan, Liverpool and Madrid, the pinnacle of club football achievement still awaits them one day. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
2023 is the City Treble year.